Well, Anita, it's so wonderful to be reconnected with you again. Last time we were together, we were with John Holland at the Omega Institute, and it was just so lovely. I'd read your book, Dying to Be Me, but yeah, hearing your story in person, it was really, really transformative. And I think that what I really experienced in you sharing your story was like quite a transmission as you did that. And it made me kind of question, like, with your near-death experience, like what what do you think was happening with your mind, body, and soul? Like, was it all happening at once to all parts of you, or were they kind of like separate? That was the biggest question that I had.
That's an interesting question. No one's asked me that before. I think for me, it did feel like it was all happening at once. It
Mm-hmm.
really did feel like that. So time was not linear and time was very abstract in that realm. So I would not be able to separate it as to what was happening first, what was happening after. So I'm going to say it was all happening at once.
Mm-hmm.
It was like we interpret things on a timeline here. So we interpret time and linear and one point of time occurring at a time when we're here in this physical time and space. But on the
Mm-hmm.
other side, it didn't feel that way at all. It
Mm-hmm.
felt like time was fluid. All of time existed at once. So you can say everything's happening at once, but it's like what you put your focus on. If I put my focus on my physical body, then that was where my focus was. If I put my focus on where my essence, my soul was transcending to, then that was where my focus on. So the timeline was determined by where I would focus.
Mm. And with you, like, I know that spiritual practice is like a big part of your life now. Is there like a similar, because like I speak about in my work Kairos time, which is like sacred time where you kind of like step into the non-linear time. Was it kind of like that or just completely different?
Probably a more magnified version of that,
Yeah.
because when you are in a meditative state or even in a trance state, you're still part of this physical time and space. You still
Mm.
have a point of attachment that is attached to this physical time and space.
Mm.
But in the case of when you actually are going through a dying process, you're leaving this physical time and space. You're
Mm.
leaving the physical body and you're starting to experience this timelessness, this essence that is not locked in. That's so I would say it's more fluid. It's probably magnified a little more. So I would say that there is this feeling of going into like an abyss of time because
Mm.
at no point do you think you're actually going back into your body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And do you do you have a belief of like do you think your soul was always going to have that experience, or was it something that like happened and then changed things? Like do you have any thoughts on that?
It's it's a bit of a dichotomy even for me because on the one hand, I feel that I got sick and had the experience because of all the choices and decisions that I made during my life. Because
Mm.
I lived a life of fear and that's why I got sick and that's why this happened. And had I not lived my life in this way, had I made different choices, I wouldn't have gotten sick. So on the one hand, it feels that way, but yet I don't feel that. But on the other, on that's what it feels on the one hand that had I not made those choices, I wouldn't have gotten sick. But on the other hand, it also feels like this is what I'm meant to be doing. What I'm doing today
Mm,
is my purpose. It's what I
mm,
came here to do. It's what I was born to do. And I would never have been led on this path had I not had the experience I had. So it's a little
mm.
bit of a dichotomy in that I had to have lived the life I lived to have had this experience. Um, and I feel that I could have made different choices that would have led me to not get cancer. And yet, without the cancer, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
Wow. Oh, I just love feeling into that mystery. Like, yeah, so like, yeah, if you didn't have cancer, maybe you would have had a different near death experience, but still had that message. Or yeah, wow,
Yeah,
wow,
it's
that's
interesting.
so interesting.
It's like I reached that point of being at the end of my life and letting go and allowing myself to even die because of how bad the cancer was. And the cancer came as a result of the way I was living my life. And so
Mm,
it's really interesting that, but coming out of it, it's like, this is what I'm meant to be doing.
mm.
Mm.
And did you like before you had your near death experience, did you like have within your heart like this, like a calling, like I'm here for a reason, like there's something I need to find and do, or was it something you weren't feeling or aware of?
I did, it's funny. I think I've always felt my entire life that I had a bigger calling, but I had no
Mm,
idea what it was. And
mm,
again, because of my life, the way my life was, I'd always lived this life of fear. So I would never have imagined that I would be a best-selling author or a speaker on a stage speaking to,
mm,
thousands of people. That would be something that would have been so out of reach for me. But yet, in my heart, I knew I had a bigger purpose. I knew I wasn't meant to just be someone who was just living their life from day to day, doing nothing, like just
mm,
being, at that time, we used to use the word housewife. I knew I wasn't meant to be just a stay at home housewife,
mm,
whiling away the days and or serving and cooking and cleaning for a family or a husband. I knew
mm,
that wasn't my purpose. I knew, but I didn't know what was. But at the same time, I knew I was here for a bigger calling, and yet I was very shy, introverted,
mm,
a people pleaser, very fearful. So I was all those things as well. And all
mm,
those things were a result of my culture, of being a woman in my culture.
mm. And then after this experience, like those things, those ways of being, like, are you still those things, or did they like slowly fall away or instantly fall away?
It was a slow process because I'd never been socialized to be out in the public and to be a public
Yeah.
figure. So I never learned the skills socially. I
Yeah.
didn't grow into that. So it was a slow process, but um, I have loved the process. It's like, I felt like I had to break away from the cultural conditioning. So it
Mm,
was that. It was chipping away at the cultural conditioning. That's what I had to do. The cultural conditioning that keeps women restrained, small, meek, subservient to men. It was that cultural conditioning. And I had to
mm,
break away from that. And that
mm,
was very liberating. But it was not like immediate, because when I tried it, when I came back from the near death experience, it wasn't accepted. So, in the culture, I mean. So, I had to slowly chip away at it.
mm. And how long was it before you and Danny moved to America?
Oh, it was quite a while after the near death experience. So, we moved here almost 10 years ago, just coming up to 10 years ago. And this near death experience happened to me about, let's see, it's 2024. It happened in 2006, so about 18 years ago. So it was
Mm-hmm.
8 years after the NDE that we moved moved out of the country that I grew up in. and away from all the people, the community, and everybody that I grew up with. And we created a new community here.
I know what that's like. I grew up in Australia and moved to London when I was 25, and then we now live in Glastonbury. And my husband, he's from Australia, but we met in London. But it's a real thing to live somewhere else. It's liberating, and it's also it's a whole thing, isn't it?
It is a whole thing, and I feel liberated from moving to and rebuilding a community that fits with who I am now, and getting away. So I don't want to undermine all my old friends from my old community. I still love them. But as a place that I grew up, it's kind of liberating to be able to create anew. It's like a clean slate, clean canvas, coming to a new country, being the person I am today instead of the person I used to be.
And the other question I wanted to ask was around like integration. Because so a lot of people in my community, and myself included, like they've had an awakening or like a unitive or consciousness shifting mystical experience. And so these things could happen like in an instant. And like what I've observed is like, especially the ones that happen in an instant, sometimes like it seems like the transformation happens like that, and it does, but also it's like, whoa, it's like that experience just continues to teach, and it's like the integration actually takes like forever. Is that the same with a near-death experience, or is it different?
No, it's the same. It's the same. Like research into near-death experiences has shown that you don't really, like the minimum amount of time you have to give yourself to integrate it is 7 years.
Wow.
To really,
oh
to
my
feel.
Goodness.
Yeah, and that research actually shows that. So there is an organization called International Association of Near-Death Studies, where you have professors who interview every near-death experiencer they can get their hands on. So I have been interviewed by them ad infinitum. In fact, I've just been invited to be on their board of advisors. But they have interviewed thousands of near-death experiencers and talked to them about the integration, about the experience itself, the integration, how their community reacts to them, how they fit in. And they have said that time and time again, they're noticing that you have to allow 7 years before you really feel that you can kind of navigate your way. I won't say before you feel you can fit in. You never go back to being the person you used to be. And nor do you want to, nor do I ever want to. Because who I am today is much closer to me being my authentic self. I am being me today. I wasn't being me before. That's why I got the cancer. I was a people pleaser. I was a doormat. I would never want to go back to that. But the people I grew up with, that's who they knew. And so this is where people struggle. It's like, how do I integrate? I've learned these things. I've discovered these things. I've discovered the truth of who I really am, what I'm meant to be, where I'm meant to go, or I've discovered some clarity about life. But nobody around me is going to understand. And that's what we have to deal with. And I hear another common thing that happens is that partnerships break up because they're no longer aligned with each other. And values change.
Knowing like your connection and how closely you work with Danny, he was on here just before, he travels with you, such a important part of your work and obviously life. Like what was the biggest like learning or I don't know, like thing that you guys needed to do in order for that integration to happen, like between you and as well as with you?
So I was very blessed. Not a lot of partners, I think, would, sadly, from what I've heard, Not a lot of partners would react and be as supportive as Danny was. So I was very blessed. I think that is the one thing that has made my journey worth it, like really worth it. Because a lot of people come back and say they wish they stayed on the other side. And I can see why, because they get lonely. They've lost their partner because their partner doesn't understand them anymore. And they've lost their community and they don't know how to integrate. So it's a real struggle. I lost a lot of people in my community as well. I was not the same person. But the one person, actually, I would say two, my brother as well. But I live with Danny, my brother lives far away. But so the one person that really made it worth my while, made the journey worth my while, who stuck with me no matter what, even if I messed up, got things wrong, fell flat on my face, you know, Danny stuck by me. And every near-death experience needs one person like that to really stick by them and make them feel they're not going crazy. And it's because he was with me when I was sick. He was with me when I was dying, and he was like holding my hand and willing me to come back. And
Wow.
so I felt that I came back because of him. And I think a big part of me knew, and that's the reason I came back, a big part of me knew that he was still going to be with me even through integrating it.
Wow. That is really, really beautiful. So moving. Oh, I wonder, like, does like if the call of your life was similar to the call of his, like was that an agreement that you guys made together, and it's like we're here?
I feel that exactly, you know, so even when I made the decision to come back, I was getting the message that his purpose and my purpose is linked. And if I don't come back, he can't complete his purpose either.
And you received that information while you had your experience.
Yes, on the other side.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, Anita, it's been so inspiring hearing your story, and particularly feel like very excited about the 7-year integration piece, because yeah, it echoes a couple of other bits of information that I've received around that 7 years that it takes. And even from my own experience, I had my mystical experience, and I struggled to even talk about it, like in a way
Yes.
that like felt like it was stable in my system until 7 years. Like it was literally to the day 7
Wow.
years. Yeah, yeah. And I had heard someone had said to me, well, that makes sense because it takes 7 years for all the cells in your body to change, or, you know, there's all of those kind of things. But yeah, I hadn't heard it that like as an actual thing. I thought it was just like a theory. Yeah, so that's amazing. Oh, okay. So I have a couple of questions. I just want to do quick fire at the end to complete. The first one is, what returns you to the wisdom within?
For me, being quiet, going out in nature, listening to music. I love music. I love listening to music. It actually alters my mood, my brain patterns, and I can go really deep when I'm listening to music that moves me. And it doesn't mean necessarily meditation music, but it can be. But it can also be ballads and other types of music. So it's a variety of music, but that's a go-to for me when I need to return within.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have like a daily spiritual practice, or does it change day to day?
It does change day to day. So, and and I've noticed I'm a little different, because I noticed that for a lot of people, they need a routine, or they need a ritual, they need a habit, they need to form a habit. For me, if I feel that I have to do this every day at a certain time, and it's the same thing, I actually feel locked in. So I notice that I'm different. And I used to judge myself for that, because every spiritual teacher I knew used to say, it's a practice. You have to do it every day and you have to do this. I've noticed for me, it makes me feel very constrained. I need that freedom to do it anytime during the day I want and for as long as I want and whenever I need it. And it can be a different practice each day. And so I like to give people permission to create what works for them and not worry about what spiritual teachers say. Don't even worry about what I say. Even if you think I'm wrong and you do need a practice every day that's the same, that's a ritual, then go for it. So,
oh my God, I so agree. Yeah, earlier in my journey, I definitely showed up to a practice and it was really good. It was like a 10-minute meditation, basically just receiving light. I loved it. And then one day I woke up and it was like, I can't do it anymore. And it's so easy to judge yourself, you know? And I think there's a lot of that happening these days in with all the division that's happening in the world, where it's kind of like we enter into different phases of awakening where like the old practices, they're not right for where we are, but it doesn't mean they were wrong. It's just like we're at a different place now. So yeah, I love that you said that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing. We have a tendency to judge ourselves and think, oh, why am I not getting this right?
Yeah, totally. And then just finally, what's inspiring you? What are you working on at the moment that's lighting you up?
Oh, so many things. So I am ready to start writing a new book.
Woohoo!
Exactly. Yeah. And also, there is a possibility of a Hollywood movie, and I say possibility, of a Hollywood movie being made about my story. And the reason I say possibility is because one never knows how long these things take. But like I've been spending my days having meetings with people like script writers who are running things by me and saying, how do you feel about this? And they've been very respectful, which I love. But it's super exciting, like speaking with the people who are the producers, the writers, and just seeing what they're putting together. And then, of course, one never knows until they actually sell it to the big studios.
Wow. Well, I can see it. Let's all hold a vision for that. I will be first in line at the cinema for that. So exciting. Amazing.
Thank you.
And I really want to encourage everyone listening or watching, if you haven't read Dying to Be Me, oh my gosh, it's such an inspiring book. And I recommend reading it now before the movie. And is there anything else that you would like to share or where people can find you?
Yes, people can find me on my website, anitamurjani.com. But I would love for them to also join my YouTube. It's just go to my YouTube channel, watch my videos. Would love for people to check out my videos and subscribe. I just love for my message to get out there because I feel that the more people that get it, the easier it becomes for people who've had these experiences to integrate.
Yes. All right. So I'll make sure we include the link to that YouTube channel as well as link to Anita's website and her books and beautiful creations. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And I will see you next time.
Thank you for this.